What's the latest in cybersecurity specifically for community media centers? Hi, I'm Seth from Metasonde, and I work with media centers on information technology, audio video engineering, operations, and outreach. And so far, this year, we're halfway through 2026, and these are the trends that I've been watching and have been seeing out there in the field. The first is very common across the IT industry. It's this idea that identity is the new perimeter. What does that actually translate to? Well, when we say perimeter, what I actually mean is a firewall and router. It used to be that that was all the protection you needed. Well, now with phishing, compromising identities and accounts is becoming more and more common. But the old standbys are still very true in PEG, and that's with the playback system, which most commonly requires a port forwarding and other sorts of external access into your network. So having a strong, robust firewall is still super important. I also recommend segmenting your regular office network with the ones that your servers exist in, perhaps from your guest network as well. Having separate user accounts for all staff members, interns, and major volunteers, and really rethinking the idea of shared accounts. This is where protecting identity becomes more and more important. And also to embrace the password manager. So if you must have shared accounts, then having a centralized location where these passwords are stored securely, they're stored encrypted, and when an employee leaves and moves on, you can quickly turn off access without needing to feverishly change a bunch of passwords. This is the best way to balance protecting identity, protecting user accounts, while also still protecting the perimeter by having a strong, robust firewall to protect your servers and other systems that you need to have externally accessible from the outside world. The next topic is email impersonation, and this is becoming more and more common. Take, for example, you list your board treasurer on your website, or maybe some thief gets it from a state records website, and somebody tries to send an email pretending to be from your board treasurer, asking to transfer a bunch of funds from one account to another. Well, having a way to flag that as potential impersonation helps reduce financial risk, and both Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 offer features for this. On the Google side of things, it's found in Gmail under Safety, where you can turn on the feature Protect Against Spoofing of Employee Names. It uses the user list in Google Workspace to judge if this is potential spam or fraud or not. On the Microsoft side of things, it's found in the Defender Security Dashboard under Policies, Email Collaboration, Policies and Rules, and then the preset security policies where you can then drill in to either standard or strict and tune those impersonation protection features. I also encourage you to rethink listing your staff on your website, maybe reducing the amount of information that's shared, maybe just first names, maybe removing titles, maybe using a group photo, just preventing those easy attacks from malicious actors out there to very quickly find information and commit this type of impersonation. I also recommend using DNS records. This includes SPF, DMARC, and DKIM. This is a trifecta for authenticating which email provider is the one of record for your domain. I recommend using groups, also limiting who can send into those groups, but more importantly, having a protocol in place for financial transactions. It's amazing that no matter how modern things move forward, I recommend having a secondary method of communication when those emails inevitably come in asking to update direct deposit information or to pay an overdue invoice. Having a protocol where instead of emailing, you pick up the phone and call the vendor, call the employee, the treasurer, the bookkeeper, whoever it is, and verify that this is legit goes a long way in preventing this impersonation. If there's anything you take from this video, I highly suggest looking at browser extensions. I consider the browser the new perimeter, the new operating system, and where most of the threats are centered around because, let's face it, we spend so much time in our web browser. So I recommend developing a policy for which browser you use in your organization. There are some IT methods to manage how much can be done with those browsers. Turning off things like window management and notifications help to reduce those scareware attacks where they try to say your computer's infected when it's really not. I highly encourage you to audit what extensions, plugins, and add-ons your browsers are using today, and consider limiting which ones can be installed. It's not uncommon that an extension that was added years ago may have been bought and paid for recently and is now up to malicious business. So take a look, and if there's anything you're not using, delete it. And lastly, click fix campaigns are something very common this year. This is where they try to trick somebody to copy and paste a script or a command into either their browser or in Windows or in Mac to try and fix a problem, when in reality, it's just launching malware. So if you are looking around for a computer fix, do be very careful if you're encouraged to copy and paste anything along the way. I want to touch on shadow IT and by proxy shadow AI, and it goes to a saying that I've heard so many times over the years that you can't use IT to solve an HR issue. I encourage you to set a policy for which apps and services your organization uses. That way, you have some documentation and a procedure in place so that employees don't potentially go rogue and start signing you up for apps that you don't necessarily want your organization to use. But at the same time, the beauty of community media is that it's an experimental playground for new technology, new tools, and new services. So I do encourage you to establish a policy for how you evaluate if an employee comes to you and says, "Hey, I'd really like to try out this new tool," and encourage that use. That way, you can be aware of potential data loss, especially with these new AI tools that are popping up. And if you are looking for something a little bit more robust, the IT solution from an IT provider is to add some level of on device web filtering, which will prevent certain websites and certain applications from loading on a PC or Mac or other device that your employee may be using. It is an option if it's something you wanted to do. And lastly, it's not new for 2026, but it is still your best defense against malware, ransomware, and even accidental deletion of data. And that's the idea of immutable storage. It's storage that once it is written, it cannot be easily changed or deleted. I would remind you not to rely on RAID or just one automatic backup for an external drive that's always connected. It's really important to have a backup that stores previous versions of files. That way, if you accidentally delete something or accidentally change something, or somebody maliciously deletes something, you have a way to refer back. If you have only one backup with one version that runs once a day, well, by the next day, that restore capability has been blown away. So previous versions are super important. Offsite and offline backups too, whether it's a cloud service, external, or even tape. Archive.org, although a wonderful resource, I would not consider a backup. So if you are moving old programming, old municipal meetings to archive.org, I do encourage you to still use a separate service or a separate drive or something that you can control that retains a copy of that. Don't make archive.org your only copy of something. And while we're talking about municipal meetings, I do encourage you to take a look if your MOU or contract with your city or town, if you have one, calls for any retention requirements. Does the town expect that you're going to keep meetings online or just keep records of them for a certain amount of time? Make sure you're in compliance with that. And if you don't have any expectations, consider setting them, because otherwise there may be a perception that you're keeping everything forever when you're really not. So you do want to draw a line in the sand and say, this is how long we can keep things, because at the end of the day, storing large media files comes at a significant cost. And there you have it. Those are the 5 things that I'm keeping an eye on this year in 2026 when it comes to cybersecurity for community media centers. If you have any questions about what you saw here or need some assistance implementing any of these best practices, I've left a link in the description below with a contact form. I'd love to talk to you. Thank you so much for watching.